Do you struggle with giving short, maybe one sentence answers when you're answering IELTS questions? It is not an uncommon problem, and I see it a lot. But today I'm going to give you some ideas and tips and tactics to help extend your answer and help you give a longer, higher level answer. To begin with, why don't we look at two answers that are commonly given in IELTS? For our example, we're going to use a simple part 1 question, do you like reading? Now on the screen we have two model answers. The first one, yes, I like reading. This is something that I frequently get from lower level IELTS students. The problem is it is far too short. The second answer, yes, I like reading because it helps me relax and I also learn new things. For example, I recently read Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, and it really gave me an idea of what America was like. You can see that the second answer is much more detailed. It's not that much longer in terms of the time it takes to say it, but it gives me, as the examiner, a lot more language to evaluate and a lot more insight into what you're thinking. Remember that 25% of your IELTS grade is fluency and coherence. The longer you talk, the more opportunity I have to assess your fluency and to see if you are a coherent speaker. And to do that, you need to develop your ideas. And you need to demonstrate your vocabulary and grammar knowledge. The second longer answer that we saw on the screen does that. To put it as simply as possible, if you give me one sentence answers, I do not have enough language to assess, and I do not have enough language to see if you are going to be at the higher levels of the IELTS scoring sheet. So of course the question becomes, how can we easily and naturally extend our answers so that we can give those longer answers and unlock those higher scoring bands? And today we're going to talk about two methods. One I've talked to you about before, and that is what I call the triple E method. Now remember, the triple E method stands for elaborate, example, and emotion. For elaborate, it means we're going to expand on our answers and giving a little more detail about what we mean. Example is going to be giving an example. It can be a personal example, it can be a general example. But this adds to your coherence because it lets me know that you know exactly what you're talking about. Finally, emotion is adding language about how you feel. It could also be an opinion. This kind of adds a naturalness to your response. And in my experience, when people are talking about emotions, talking about how they feel personally, it tends to help their intonation and stress as they speak, because you're speaking about something very personal, and that tends to relax students. So let's look at another example. And the question here is going to be, what qualities make a good leader? Now we have a band 6 answer on the screen. A good leader should be responsible. Okay, I agree with you, but that is far too short of an answer. The band 7 answer, though, is expanded using the triple E method. And I have put in parentheses where I am using the parts of the triple E. I think a great leader needs to be responsible because they set an example for others. For instance, my manager always takes accountability when things goes wrong and finds solutions instead of blaming others. I really admire this because it makes me trust and respect them more. You can listen to that again, and you can see how when I was talking about my emotions, admiration, trust, respect, my voice changed. And I didn't do that for you. I did it naturally. I'm talking about my feelings. I'm talking about how I feel about my boss. And it just kind of naturally came out. And I think the same will happen with you if you are talking about your emotions. It does for many of my students. If you look at the screen again, you can see where I have marked elaboration, example, and emotion. And you can see how it comes together quite naturally and fluently. I know exactly what you mean, and there's really no question of the answer being too short. It is a succinct, tight, and very appropriate answer. Why does the triple E method work here? First, it's natural and detailed. Second, you're using storytelling to sound fluent. I know that you know what the words you're using means because you're incorporating them into a story. Finally, it shows awareness of real-life situations. You're not speaking abstractly. You're taking the question and you're bringing your own experience to it. And I think that's a high-level thing to do. Now let's use a new method that I'm going to introduce to you today to answer another question. And that method is called the IDEA formula. The IDEA formula has 4 parts. I-D-E-A. The I stands for introducing your answer. You want to state what you're going to say very clearly. Think of it like an introductory sentence in your writing. The D stands for describe. Give me more detail. What do you mean? The E is explain yourself. Give a reason or a personal connection to what you're saying. And finally, the A is add a real life example. Again, it could be personal. It could be more general. You can see there's some overlap here with the triple E method, but whatever is easier for you to remember, don't worry. They're both getting you to the same place in the end. So let's look at a question now. The question is, do you think technology has made life easier or harder? As you can see on the screen, we have a band 6 answer. I think technology makes life easier because it saves time. Now, it's band 6, it's very short. There is some idiomatic language in here, but really not enough. But look at the band 7 answer. I believe technology has made life easier. For example, smartphones allow people to work remotely and stay connected. This is really useful because it saves time and makes communication more efficient. Personally, I use my phone to check emails and manage work while traveling. We can go back and look at that frame again, and you can see I have labeled the IDEA. Why does the IDEA method work here? First, we very clearly stated the main idea. Second, we've added supporting details and explanations so that the examiner knows what you mean, and I think more importantly, the examiner knows that you understand the words you're using. And finally, the personal example at the end makes it more natural and fluent. Again, if you're speaking from personal experience, you're naturally going to sound more fluent and you're going to relax. This is my experience time and time and time again. Anyone can memorize vocabulary, phrases, idiomatic expressions, but to take those and apply them to your own life, to your own lived experience, is quite high level. And if you do it, your score is going to reflect it. So I'd like to try a little experiment here. I'm going to put a question on the screen, and I'd like you to pause and try to answer it. And I want you to use either the triple E method or the IDEA method that we've explained before. So here's your question. How has social media changed the way we communicate? Did it work? Did you use one of the methods? If so, go back into the comments and type what you said, and I'll be happy to check it for you. Our top 3 things to remember from today's video. 1 is a 1-sentence answer, no matter on what part of the IELTS speaking test, is too short. You are not giving me the language that I need to fully evaluate your answer, and you are absolutely closing off the higher level scores. The second thing we can remember is to use either the triple E method or the IDEA method to extend and expand on your answers. If you keep these in mind, it will become second nature. You must practice, though. Do not wait to go into the exam room before you start using these things. Think of it in your mind, practice, and it will become easier and easier to do. Third, and part of the second one, is to always add experiences, personal examples, general examples. It shows me as the examiner that you understand what you're talking about and that you can apply the language, the questions we're talking about to your everyday life. If you keep these ideas in mind, you're on your way to a higher IELTS score. But you must practice. So leave me the expanded answer below from our practice today, and I will check it. Give me a thumbs up, a subscription, and share my video with your friends. And until next time, happy studies.